All right, guys, let's talk about it. The 2026 midterm elections are this year, and in my opinion, they're set to be dominated by a single issue. The party that capitalizes on affordability in a sincere and relatable way by offering tangible solutions is going to be the party that walks away a winner. So, here's why I think affordability will be the defining issue of the 2026 midterm elections. Let's discuss. I'd say that out of all the issues an election could be about, this one is unique because it's the singular issue that for most people is omnipresent every time they go to cast a ballot. Let me ask you something. Were you casting a ballot in 1992? I wasn't, but as it turns out, that's the election that gave birth to a phrase we've all heard before. It's the economy, stupid. James Carville. It's brilliant because it's a summation of what happens almost every election cycle. In the lead up to the election, the talking heads on cable news focus on 4 or 5 other issues. And then, on election day, the voters come right back around and vote on whether or not they can afford to live. Usually. Because this is something that cuts across party lines. Affordability is not a niche concern or a single policy debate. It's the daily lived experience of millions of American voters. Housing costs, healthcare bills, childcare expenses, insurance premiums, groceries, utilities, and transportation have all gone up in price faster than wages can keep up for much of the past decade and beyond. You've heard a lot of talk about inflation during the last few administrations, but even that's not the same thing. Even when the inflation number cools, it doesn't matter if the prices themselves remain higher than what people expect or can afford. Voters tend to remember prices, not percentages. When you go grocery shopping, are you relieved because Fox News told you that inflation fell to 2.74%? Or are you looking at what you can pull out of your shopping cart because the price of ground beef per pound is higher than it was last year? Or that eggs cost more than you're used to? Or that coffee is more expensive? If Americans feel like they're able to get by, they'll reward you. But if they're stuck having to scrape by, they'll punish you. It's that fucking simple. In 2026, I think that this is a reality that will shape voter behavior more than ideological labels or abstract policy arguments. We all know that the midterm elections historically favor the party out of power. But in a challenging economy, affordability is a wild card that cuts across that dynamic because it speaks to a shared sense of economic pressure that transcends partisan identity. It's why Trump won in 2024, and it's why the party who can come up with a living, breathing message on affordability will win in 2026. Because people don't vote based on macroeconomic charts. They vote based on whether their lives feel manageable. I want to specify that in this case, affordability means something different than traditional economic messaging. They both fall under the same umbrella, but I think the winning argument will be one that zeroes in on something that's personal rather than abstract. The stock market is part of the economy, but most people don't care how the stock market is doing because most people don't own stock. Terms and phrases like inflation, investments, GDP, these are buzzwords. They don't speak to the average American voter because they don't view their economic situation through that kind of lens. Affordability for most of us is about the truths we experience at the kitchen table. Planning the grocery budget. How much can we afford to spend? Deciding on what bills have to get paid first, because fuck knows we can't pay them all in one shot. Do I need to ask for a raise, or should I start looking for a different job or a second job? Voters disagree on climate change, immigration, foreign policy, and just about any other issue you can name, but they almost universally agree on this. Things cost way too much, and it's not sustainable. The affordability argument is the sharpest arrow in your quiver because It cuts across class, race, age, and geography. It affects renters and homeowners, young families and retirees, and it overrides party loyalty when frustration reaches a tipping point. I think that tipping point is here, now. And it's been staring us in the face for longer than anyone in power is willing or comfortable to admit. Wage gains haven't felt real. Wages have gone up, and that's good news, but it's still been a nominal increase when you consider how high prices have gone on just about everything. Most people don't even get the chance to feel any real relief. Your rent resets annually. Your insurance premiums keep creeping upward. Interest rates punish you for borrowing. Student loan payments and medical bills persist. Nothing ever fucking dies. It's nothing you're doing wrong. You're working just as hard and for less security. It's like being a hamster on a wheel. You don't get anywhere. You're running in place. That emotional truth matters more than the blinking lights of economic indicators rolling at the bottom of the screen on fucking MSNBC. Affordability is a trust issue, especially now when affordability erodes in the way it has over decades of economic policy that favors people at the top. Voters lose faith. They already have. Not just in the markets, but in our institutions, because governments are expected, rightly or wrongly, to help stabilize basic costs. Most people expect that. So, when the cost of living isn't addressed in any way other than lip service, voters assume leaders are either out of touch or captured by special interests. And let's be honest, are they wrong or are they right? I think they're right. That sense of distrust creates volatility, which midterms tend to amplify. So, let's take some time to focus on how capturing the affordability argument can benefit both parties. Starting with the Democrats, because affordability aligns naturally with their brand, even if they haven't really taken advantage of it in a way that makes them synonymous with the working class these days. It's an issue that offers them real potential for long-term gains, especially in a difficult economic environment controlled exclusively by Republicans. But they will need to force themselves to communicate their positions clearly and tangibly, not in broad strokes and vague platitudes, but with an eye on differences, specifics, and choices. They need to provide some actual contrast with their opponents. Here's where I think the opportunities for Democrats are hiding. They can emphasize cost controls on healthcare, prescription drugs, childcare, and housing. They can frame affordability as a quality of life issue, not just redistribution. And they can highlight policies that factually reduce monthly expenses rather than offering abstract benefits. The strategic advantage with an approach that focuses on these key areas is that Democrats tend to win when voters actually believe government can help them live better. Hammering on the affordability argument allows Democrats to shift away from culture war framing to reconnect with working class voters who they've lost and who feel economically squeezed, and it allows them to demonstrate competence rather than ideology. Now, there's two really easy ways for Democrats to mishandle this opportunity, and we know that because Democrats have already done both of them before. One, the prospect of a second Biden term was unpopular for a lot of reasons, but his numbers absolutely tanked because his main economic message was that the economy was just fine. Poll after poll told him the opposite, and instead of correcting to address the concerns voters were expressing, he put his fingers in his ears and dug in. And then, when he quit his campaign and Kamala Harris became the nominee, she killed her momentum right out of the gate by telling the electorate that she couldn't think of even one thing she'd do differently from Biden. Nobody in the Democratic Party seemed to recognize the flashing red lights, so they got run over by the Trump train. Democrats are out of power heading into 2026, so I wouldn't really expect them to say the economy is fine. But I have a rule that says don't trust a Democrat with a layup. If Democrats allow themselves the mistake of appearing even the least bit dismissive of cost of living pain, then they should just pack it up and go home. Voters are sick of being told how to feel by cultural elites who don't even step foot inside a Walmart. Voters don't care about optimistic macroeconomic narratives when they're struggling with rent or groceries. So you can either recognize that or shut the fuck up. The other way they can screw up the messaging is the one I'd be more worried about if I'm a Democratic candidate or strategist or anyone working for the left. And that's the tendency for Democrats to make everything about Donald fucking Trump. I'm going to take a moment to make this as clear as I can to the establishment hacks running the Democratic Party right now. Nobody cares. You tried it your way. You've tried it for 10 years. Biden won by such a small handful of votes in 2020 that Democratic politicians should be ashamed at having lost to Trump the two other times. Donald Trump won Hispanic men in 2024. He made huge gains with people under 30. He nailed down every swing state and won the popular vote. Do you know what that means? It means it's time to stop talking about Donald Trump and start talking about what you will do differently from him. Because that old chestnut of democracy is at stake and comparing Trump to Hitler did this for you. Zero, fucking zero. The Democratic Party will either learn how to abandon a losing strategy while there's still a chance to turn things around, or they're going to run with the orange man bad routine and find themselves locked out of power for the rest of Trump's term. Simple. Your choice, Democrats. Now, let's turn the tables. How can Republicans benefit from the affordability argument? Republicans are in a unique position right now because they are now viewed as the party of the working class. They made gains with almost every demographic in 2024. So I say that talking about affordability in a serious way offers a huge chance to broaden their appeal beyond the cultural grievance and anti-government rhetoric that electrifies their existing base. They'd be able to lock in the gains of the last cycle and bring even more voters into their camp. I think the Republican opportunities on this issue look like this. They can critique regulatory barriers that drive up housing and energy costs. They can emphasize competition, supply-side solutions, and local control. And they can frame affordability as freedom from economic pressure and bureaucratic burden. The strategic advantage Republicans have is that they tend to gain when voters feel the system is inefficient or unfair. It's why Trump won in 2016. It's why he won in 2024. There's no reason they can't build on the success they've already had if they do this right. A message focused on affordability lets Republicans do the following. They can argue that government overreach raises prices. They can reclaim credibility on economic stewardship, and they can appeal to independent swing voters focused on cost of living rather than ideology. But Republicans aren't any different from Democrats in that they also can mishandle the affordability argument to create a giant fuck up. And they also have two main ways to do this. The first is that Republicans just ignore the issue completely. No, I'm fucking serious. When you have Donald Trump himself calling affordability a Democratic hoax, it's kind of hard to convince a struggling electorate that you give a damn. The comfort zone for Trump is to rely on self-aggrandizement and the idea that his economy is always the best things have ever been for everyone who ever voted ever. You can play that card if you want, but you'll risk recreating Biden's mistake. Down ballot Republicans have clearly noticed that there's a real problem with how voters are experiencing the economy. But Trump doesn't seem to understand the criticism. We've seen the Trump White House start to pivot towards embracing affordability as a real issue. So it looks like the Republican Party is preparing to lean into it collectively in some fashion. But Trump himself is going to have to recalibrate his own messaging on this issue, because if he doesn't, he just might sink his whole party. Donald Trump is the party's strongest messenger, but he's also its biggest albatross. They'll need to balance that in some way. The Republican Party has to address the economic concerns of the common man in a way that isn't about immigration and the border. They can't just focus solely on tax cuts for high earners or downplay corporate price setting either. If you want to reinforce perceptions that the Republican Party prioritizes elites over everyday consumers, then keep talking about how affordability is a hoax. Go ahead. But if Trump goes back to the populist rhetoric that got him elected, things like no tax on tips and overtime, if he offers real, tangible benefits that attract independent voters, then I say the Republicans are looking very good in 2026. The other way Republicans can shoot themselves in the foot is by focusing too heavily on culture war fights. I know, I get it, that's their bread and butter, and I won't pretend that they haven't found some success with it. But I think that fruit has been squeezed so far as new voters go. The people who still care about Trump's obsession with the 2020 election or the retribution tour against every Democrat who ever lived are already in your tent. Culture war issues risk crowding out attention that could be given to economic issues, and affordability is where the gold is. So, with all that being said, why is affordability going to win the 2026 midterm elections? My answer is, it's a rare bipartisan entry point for anyone who wants to run a campaign on either side. Affordability is one of the few issues where voters focus on action, not purity tests. It's an example of pragmatism beating out ideology, where solutions can differ without denying the problem. A political environment has been created where voters are going to reward seriousness over slogans. The candidates who demonstrate empathy, realism, and specificity, regardless of party, will have a huge built-in advantage in any argument they choose to make. Because the voters are waking up. They see how the two-party system has fucked them over and over without solving anything. They know that billionaire donors and foreign interests have consumed our institutions and media so completely that none of it works to our benefit anymore. We're not seeing a vibrant, thriving republic based on noble ideals and the concept of a fair shake. We're looking at the hollowed out husk of what used to be called a government of the people, by the people, for the people. The people in control aren't the people you elect, because the people you elect are controlled themselves by dark money, by lobbyists, by Israel. Take your fucking pick. This isn't a left versus right issue or a culture issue or a race issue. This is about the establishment versus the revolution. If you want to know where the problem is, you need to look up. The puppet masters with their hands on the strings that control our politicians. That's the real enemy of your republic. And that's who we as the electorate need to take on if we're going to fix a damned thing. And it starts by electing people who are invested in your economic well-being instead of theirs. Because here's the honest truth. I don't care which party wins. I care about the candidates. I am so sick of the entirety of our government working for such a select few at the expense of the rest of us. Trump said he was going to drain the swamp, release the Epstein files, and focus on America first. Did he do any of that? I don't think so. Democrats have said for years that the establishment knows best and that we should all get in line because it's the only way to stop Trump. Did it? It's all lies. And I've had it with being lied to. I want a government that works for everyone, for me and for you, not based on what party I voted for or what billionaires are supporting which policies, but on what is in the collective good of the American people. That's just how I feel about it. If you feel differently, more power to you. All right. So, whoever makes the best argument as it pertains to affordability is going to win. That's my view. The last thing we need to figure out is, are there any pitfalls that could undermine a winning coalition that cares about affordability? Sure there are. You bet there are. Culture war overreach will fuck up that message no matter what side it comes from. Contentious issues that revolve around education, identity politics, and social conflict are great at energizing your base, but they absolutely repel swing voters when they're overemphasized. I'm begging candidates on both sides, for just one election, please, let's focus on the things we agree on for once, instead of talking over and over about wedge issues that are guaranteed to pull us apart. Just one election. Can we do that? These colossally stupid culture war debates dominate media cycles and do nothing to address the day-to-day financial strain of ordinary, everyday Americans. And that's every single one of us. Do we really care about hot-button issues and purity tests so fucking much that we want to blot out the damn sun? I think candidates who appear obsessed with these symbolic fights are going to risk looking disconnected from voters' real concerns. Real concerns. I don't give two shits about Trump is a danger to democracy or transgender people are not like us or whatever the fuck the thing is right now. These things are so small and unimportant when we've got real challenges to address and true threats to uncover. I also don't think you can just promise people the moon either. Over-promising and then under-delivering are going to be the surest method of undoing any chance we have to fix anything. Your solutions need to be realistic, genuine, and popular. And when you're elected, you need to see them through with everything you have. Promise what you know you're willing to actually fight for, and then fight for it until your last electoral breath. The yes we can thing from Obama is not going to play anymore. It's not 2008. That dog won't hunt in 2026. Slogans like drain the swamp won't be worth a damn when the Epstein files full of black bar, full-page redactions have proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that the swamp still runs everything. Do we have the name of even one fucking pedophile? If you're running for office in the next election or any election after that, you need to say what you mean and mean what you say, or else it's just going to be business as usual. And I think collectively, we are all so done with that. Voters are skeptical after years and decades of being lied to. Proposals that sound too big, too fast, or too vague are going to backfire, especially if voters doubt you mean it. I think that messaging around affordability will work best when candidates promise relief that feels achievable. There's nothing wrong with incremental change because once voters get a taste for it, they're going to want more. We don't have to jump straight into the deep end right off the bat. Let's look for items that people on both sides find popular. How do we not have paid family leave? It's overwhelmingly popular. Other countries do it. Why is ID not required to vote? It's overwhelmingly popular. Other countries do it. How is it that we've lost touch with the common needs that can unite us? It makes no sense. Here's my bottom line. I believe that affordability will dominate the 2026 midterms. It reflects a shared national anxiety. I'm talking about the fear that hard work no longer guarantees stability. In the greatest country on earth, that's a damned fucking shame. We deserve better, and I think the voters know it. Candidates who understand that anxiety and speak to it plainly are going to outperform those who rely on ideological comfort zones. For both parties, the path to success runs through these three things. 1. Acknowledging cost of living pain. 2. Offering concrete, credible solutions. And 3. Avoiding distractions that alienate persuadable voters. The party that convinces voters it takes affordability seriously, not rhetorically, but practically, that party will shape the outcome of 2026. What do you think it's going to be? This has been Garbage Day for January 9th of 2026. If you stuck around to the end, I'm grateful, but that doesn't mean the discussion is over. I really want to know what you think. Do you agree that a focus on affordability is the right way to go? Which side has the best chance of pulling it off? Comment down below. Let's talk about it. And as always, if you appreciate the content, then I humbly ask, like, share, follow, subscribe, and all that other good stuff. I'm looking to increase my audience and grow my channel. And since I'm just starting out, those things will help a lot. They're free. In the meantime, take care. See you next time.